Please remain standing for the reading of the gospel. At that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to him, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." He said to them, "Go and tell that fox for me, listen, I am casting out demons and performing many cures today and tomorrow, and on the third day I finish my work. Yet today, tomorrow, and the next day I must be on my way, because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed away from Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you are not willing. See, your house is left to you. And I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, 'Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'"
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Amen.
You may be seated. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable unto you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. So Saturday night we're having chicken cordon bleu, huh? I'm not a big chicken lover. I much prefer beef or pork over chicken. So when Chick-fil-A opens up here in the next few weeks, you're probably not going to see me standing in line. However, there are a couple of exceptions. Sarah makes a really good barbecue chicken. In fact, we had some this week. And I have to say that Lucy Sutton makes the best fried chicken that I've ever had. It's so good that I'd even eat it a couple of times a month, and I don't think I'd get tired of it. But do you know who really likes chicken? Foxes. Foxes love chicken. And if you don't believe me, just ask Roger and Kay Stats, or Chris and Diane Joyce, or Tracy and Derek or Lumpkin, or anybody else that raises chickens. And it seems to me that if a chicken and a fox were ever to get into like a boxing match, that the fox would be somewhere around a 2.7 million to 1 favorite, right? It really wouldn't be much of a fight, would it? A fox versus a hen. And that's exactly what we find ourselves with in our scripture this morning. And the very first verse of our reading, it kind of surprises us. Some Pharisees warned Jesus to get out of town because Herod wants to kill him. And this surprises us because we have this picture of the Pharisees as being bad guys. You know, we usually don't think of them in a positive light. But we oversimplify things when we say the Pharisees were all opposed to Jesus. Some of them were actually friendly and supportive of Jesus. And here, some Pharisees bring a warning that Herod is out to get him. I wonder how they got their information. Doesn't really matter. But for some reason, they seem to be concerned for Jesus and warn him about Herod's intentions. Now, you need to understand that Herod's somebody that you don't ever want to mess with. You may remember that John the Baptist got into a bit of hot water with Herod, and John wound up with his head on a platter. But now Herod was thinking about Jesus, who kind of reminded Herod of John the Baptist. Now, if you were told that the most powerful person in your part of the world wanted you dead, how would you react? I'd try to find some place to hide. But Jesus doesn't flinch. He tells the Pharisees, go and tell that fox that I've got bigger concerns than his latest temper tantrum. I've got work to do. Listen, I'm casting out demons, I'm healing people, and then I'm going on to Jerusalem. I may get killed, but if I do, it's going to be in Jerusalem, the city that kills prophets. Herod is a fox. Now, the meaning of the term fox has kind of changed over the years. You know, I remember back in high school, being called a fox wasn't such a bad thing. That's what the young men used to call the young ladies, right? You know, meaning they thought they were attractive. Business leaders and some politicians are called shrewd foxes, meaning that they had the smarts and made the right moves to achieve their positions. Well, forget these modern connotations of the word fox in our scripture reading. A fox is sly and cunning and destructive. And Herod certainly fits all of those things and more. And for Jesus to call Herod a fox was no compliment, believe me. And what's especially interesting here is the difference between Jesus and Herod. Herod is destruction, but Jesus is filled with compassion, and his purpose is to love and protect and save. He knows that Jerusalem kills prophets. He knows what's waiting for him when he gets there. And yet he has this deep, tender love for the city and its people. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to us. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. I've seen hens try to gather their chicks. The minivans and the SUVs line up at the school at about 3 p.m. Yeah? The school bell rings and the children emerge, but instead of going straight for the waiting vehicles, some of them will kind of wander around, maybe even stop over on the playground equipment for a little bit. Chicks can be hard to gather in. Or maybe when they're a bit older, kids go somewhere with their parents, but they don't really want to be seen with them. You know, the chicks don't want to be gathered under the hen's protective wings. As I was studying this passage, I was struck by the words Jesus said, "And you were not willing. I would have gathered you, but you were not willing." How frustrating and sad it is when we want to help, when we have something to offer, but our help isn't accepted. As a teacher, as a neighbor, as a parent, as a friend, as a pastor, as a colleague, we may see someone with real needs, someone that we care about, and we really do have something to offer, but the walls are up and we can't get through. Jesus offered his very self, but the walls were up. You were not willing. And how often, even today, does God want to gather us under his wings? But we are not willing. God, he's got to be looking at our world today with all of our divisions, with so many people living in poverty, with the violence that just seems to be abounding everywhere, with money being the driving force behind almost everything, and just weep. Jesus describes himself of all things as a hen. Now, that's not the kind of image that most of us would use to describe ourselves, you think? You know, if I was going to be identified as some type of an animal, I'd want to be like the king of the jungle, you know, a lion, or maybe a grizzly bear, a pit bull, would that be okay? A graceful deer. Or if I had to compare myself to a bird, it seems like there'd be something better than a hen, something more along the line of, I don't know, a beautiful swan or a powerful eagle, maybe even a wise owl. Even a peacock would be better than a chicken, right? Jesus as a chicken just doesn't exactly stir our spirits. But we need to understand the image that he uses. A mother hen gathering her brood out of love, out of care. A mother hen whose only concern is the safety of her children. Now, chickens may not be the most glamorous animals around, but hens care for their young. Y'all remember that old story about the farmer's chicken coop that caught on fire, and when he arrived, it was too late to put out the fire. He just didn't get there in time. And as he sorted through the wreckage, he came across one hen lying dead near what had been the front door of the hen house. Her feathers had been singed brown by the heat of the fire, and her neck was limp. And the farmer bent down to pick up the dead hen, but as he did, he felt some movement. And the hen's chick came scurrying out from beneath her burnt body. The chick survived because it was insulated by the shelter of the hen's wings, protected and saved, even as she died, to protect and save it. And that's the image of Jesus' sacrificial love for us, that would gather his own unto himself and die to save us. Sacrificing love. How I would have gathered you under my wings, but you were not willing. While it's a moving and comforting image, when it comes to dealing with foxes, I think we'd still prefer something a little more solid. While the foxes of our world start pounding outside the door, it'd be nice to have something with a little better defense than a mother hen. One of my favorite movies is the movie Pale Rider. It stars Clint Eastwood. I've seen it many times. Clint's a frontier preacher with a past, only we don't know what kind of past it is. And he walked around with a clerical collar on, you know, and he's looking deeply religious. But one time he took off his shirt, and you could see the scars from 3 bullet wounds in his back. Well, one day he rides into a mining town that had been overrun by foxes. And the corrupt sheriff's in cahoots with a bunch of armed thugs who shoot just about everybody in their way. And for a while, Clint just kind of takes it in, figuring out exactly who the foxes are. And then one day he goes to the bank, pulls out a key for a safety deposit box, which is really a key to his past. And he pulls out the box, opens it up. It's got 2 6-shooters and a belt. He carefully straps that around his waist, and then he takes off his clerical collar and puts it in the safety deposit box. Now, whenever I watch this movie, I'm always thinking to myself, all right, Clint, go get them. Go nail those foxes and their tails to the wall. Which, of course, is exactly what Clint does, right? We might prefer a 6-shooter to a hen, but Clint is Clint, and Jesus is Jesus. Jesus fought the foxes of the world without becoming a fox himself. All he had was his own body to stand in the way of evil and sin and destruction that the foxes would bring. And bring it they did. When Herod and his gang came after Jesus and his brood, He didn't have any six-shooters. He just put himself between them and the chicks, and he hunkered down like a mother hen. A fox against a hen just doesn't seem like a fair fight, but it turned out to be one for the ages. And God bet the farm on the hen. And at first it appeared that the foxes had won. Feathers were everywhere and the chicks scattered. She died a mother hen. But that wasn't the end of it. The hen came back to the chicks, covered with teeth marks, and proved that the power of the foxes could not kill her love for them. So there you have it. Jesus the chicken, the mother hen who offers her life, her love for the life of the chicks. You know, in a mother hen, we have an image that we probably don't expect. One of courage, self-sacrifice, unshakable care for her brood. And I think it's a great picture of God's love for us. That God's care and provision for us, it didn't come without a price. Jesus gave his very life for all the chicks, even those who refused to be under his wings. And we might just leave it at that. A very comforting image of God, gathering us under her wings, loving us, whatever the price. And that's a beautiful picture, one that we can take comfort in. But we can't. We can't just leave it at that. You see, the call to follow Christ is not only a call to be comforted and cared for, we're called to be like Christ. The church is called to be Christ's body here on earth. And we are called to grow from chicks into chickens. Like Jesus, we're to give of ourselves for those who are vulnerable, those who are hurting, those who are lost. We're to stand up to the foxes of this world, not running from them and not becoming foxes ourselves, but fighting hatred with compassionate love. All the world may be betting on the foxes, but God's going with the hens. Amen. If there is anyone here this morning who would like to make public your confession of faith or to transfer your membership to First Christian Church, please come forward and accept our right hand of fellowship as we stand and sing our hymn of dedication.